all had a great night last night, and I see that we've got a few people still sleeping. So I'm Brian Beck. I'm your host for the Business Track session. We've got a great panel here assembled in front of you today to talk about international, going global with Magento. It's a really exciting topic. As a retailer, I've gone global myself several times, and it can be a daunting task, but also a great one to expand your business. So before I introduce our lead panelist here, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Like getting a lot of questions about posting the materials to the website. They will be up on the Magento website. They're trying to get the ones from yesterday up today, but worst case will be right after the conference. They'll be up on the website so you guys can take a look and download all the presentations. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rich Lyons, who's the CEO of Lyons Group, and he will be leading our session today on international. So Rich.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Sure. Thanks, everyone, for coming. We've got a great panel today. We've got Andrew from Oneida, Chris from 51, and Raimundo from Global Shop X. So we've got 30 minutes just in terms of housekeeping. We're going to try to leave 10 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So we're going to kind of tell the story of international today. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves on the panel. Then we're going to jump right in. What really is the opportunity for international? Why would you go international? What are the challenges you're going to face? How do you prepare for that? And what are best practices? Talk a little bit about options, and then look at results, and then talk next steps. What would you do to go international? What's the first thing you would do? And then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. Just quickly on my company, Lyons Consulting Group, we do strategy, design, development, hosting, and support. We basically won Magento Innovator of the Year last year based on having some of the largest and happiest customers on Magento. So we're really all about happy customers. You've heard a lot of our customers speak, actually. Adam from Eaton Park spoke yesterday, Catherine from C Wonder, Mike from Blue Dot, Andrew's here today. So we've got a lot of great clients. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, actually, to talk a little bit about Oneida and do an introduction.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I am Andrew Ruggieri. I'm the Vice President of E-commerce for Oneida Limited. Oneida Limited, if you're not familiar with them, is a 132-year-old designer and maker of flatware and tabletop products. Really, Oneida serves two broad market segments, food service and consumer. So our products are available in restaurants and hotels all around the world. And on the consumer side, available at retail stores and also online at oneida.com.
Great. Now I'll go to Chris from 51.
Hi, my name is Chris Green. I head up sales strategy and business development for New York-based 51 Global E-commerce. We're a technology and services platform that enable and stimulate and facilitate cross-border trade for US-based retailers with global ambition. We're actually a 13-year-old company. We started in 1999 as a company called E4X. We were focused on currency solutions as the only means you needed to think about in order to kind of tap into a global opportunity. And that was true for retailers that were selling kind of downloadable software and hotel reservations and things that didn't ship. I think when we were talking to retailers who are actually shipping parcels across borders, the market told us that currency is pretty far down the list of things that we need to figure out. We need to calculate landed costs, collect duties, remit duties, manage payment, fraud, logistics, customs. And if I figure out all those things and need currency, I'll give you a call. Well, the phone never rang, so in 2007 we thought, hey, why don't we solve all those problems? So we built a new product called 51, which was a play on a bridge between 50 states and one world. We launched that product in January of 2008, which was a perfect time for us because the recession was hitting in the United States. And consumers in the United States were stuffing all their cash into shoe boxes and underneath the mattress, and retailers were scrambling to protect the top line. How am I going to replace this revenue? And we'd come in and say, hey, if you don't ship to Australia today, but you do tomorrow, then that's top line revenue growth. And it was pretty compelling. So today, fast forward 4 years, we're powering international e-commerce for 120 US retailers. We have them with the lights on in 106 countries and in 43 currencies. And we have 40 million SKUs for sale across that community.
Thanks, Chris. And then Raimundo from Global Shop X.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Raimundo Martinez. I'm the president for Global Shop X. And we provide an international checkout solution and logistics solution to more than 200 countries. The company was founded in 1999. We are coming from the logistics and airline industry, and we have two different business models. The car-to-car solution, which is in Magento extension, is a Magento extension as well, and we provide a web service solution as well. We are partnered, we have our own logistic division. We are partnered with most of the major airlines. We are based in Miami, where we have our distribution center. And we also do marketing in different countries. We're very strong in Brazil, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia. So we don't only provide the logistic solution, but also the marketing locally.
Great, thank you. So we're going to jump right in and talk about the opportunity of international. Why should you consider going international? And Chris is going to start off and actually talk about that.
Sure, so just at a broad level, I mean, the fundamentals are really strong. I mean, just more people around the world are being connected to the internet and with broadband access. There's the proliferation of mobile device and mobile use, which is well discussed. There's also an increasing consumer comfort with security online kind of around the world. There's also this really neat, there's a lot of kind of emerging markets. When we look at Brazil, there's kind of this emerging middle class and this rise in affluence and rise in wealth, and they're looking to capitalize on wealth. They're spending a lot more online. There's also this notion of kind of this increasing global consumerism. So, you know, the TV shows that we all watch with kind of American brand product placement are being syndicated all over the world. I can tell you as a Canadian that Canadians all watch kind of US TV shows. We have our favorite NFL teams. We're very used to kind of, you know, US brands and consume a lot of US media. There's also the FX impact of international. So there's a lot of currencies that are really strong against the US dollar right now, and effectively America is on sale to everyone in Australia and in Singapore and in Canada. And when a currency is strong against the US dollar, we find that it's really well discussed in that country's media, and consumers in that country know that their currency is strong and they look to capitalize on that. So the favorable FX against the US dollar in many countries you know, introduces a great opportunity.
I think that's a great point. I think we cover that. I think we dig into that even a little more. And then let's talk about, Raimundo's going to talk about a little bit about how big is the opportunity, like why should you even be looking at it and what's happening globally?
Yeah, there's no question that there's a huge opportunity by going internationally. You already have a lot of international traffic that you are not taking care of that. And if you consider this graph today, how big, well, the US e-commerce today is more than $200 billion. But what is the percentage that you can expect going from the US to international markets? We're estimating it's less than 3%, but in 2015 we're expecting almost 4%. And if you go the graph, if you look at the graph, you can see that the e-commerce, the growth in the US is going down, but the international growth is huge. So there's a huge market opportunity in order to go international.
That's great. That's great. And then Andrew's going to talk about a little bit Oneida specifically and how they decided to go international.
Yeah, so really the first question for us was, you know, is the demand there? And this is where, you know, you really need to leverage your analytics data. So really looking at it, how were these international customers finding us? What were they doing when they came on our site? And what we saw from just a pure traffic, we did see about a 25% increase in international visitors and really started to segment them out in our analytic data. So we started to track them, and we were seeing that they spent more time on our site. They were really going in, looking at the product, spending a lot of time on the product pages, and then we would see them go to the shipping options page or the FAQ section. So really, you know, that was a good indication to us that they were looking for that option to be able to have that product sent to them. And from, you know, talking to our customer service department, you know, whether it's international customers or any other thing going on your e-commerce site, it's always a fantastic resource to tap into that customer service department. But started to talk to them and started to have them track, you know, how many inquiries are we getting as far as international shipping questions, and, you know, is it 1 a week, is it 10 a week? And we were seeing that the demand was building year over year. You know, every week there was more and more questions from different countries around the world about international shipping options. So, you know, that really led us down the path of, you know, the demand's there, now's the time to make that move. And again, from brand recognition, we have a good brand penetration throughout the world, whether through our restaurants or hotels, or even our consumer side, that it was the right decision for us to make the move a few years ago to sell international.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew. So hopefully you can see the opportunity there. Now let's talk a little bit about the challenges. Obviously, there are some challenges you're going to face to go international. So Chris is going to start with this.
Sure. So when you're thinking about international and you're considering kind of doing it yourself, building out kind of your own infrastructure and your own resources and assets, kind of a management perspective is usually, how do I protect the brand? How do I create a customer experience that's worth spending marketing dollars against? How do I acquire customers? How do I organize around an international function? And how do I know what I don't know? And then the IT folks are worried, how do I bend my back office to accept international addresses? How do I integrate with all these new carriers and customs brokers and payment providers and banks? How do I manage new email templates or support country-specific merchandising strategies? Logistics folks are worried about, how do I manage this extra paperwork? How do I calculate duties and taxes? How do I collect it? How do I remit it? How do I manage customs clearance? How do I know if anything I'm selling is restricted, either for export from the United States or import into a specific lane? Finance folks are probably thinking, do I have to set up new bank accounts? Do I have to just create a new treasury function? How do I manage FX risk? When am I going to get paid? And then customer service folks are wondering, am I going to get a bunch of calls from people that don't speak English? And how am I going to staff around that? So there's all these concerns that kind of transcend the organization when you're thinking about going international and the daunting task of trying to do it yourself.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And then Oneida specifically, Andrew, what challenges did you face initially?
Well, I mean, really everything that Chris just hit upon, kind of once we came to the conclusion that, okay, we have X amount of visitors coming every year, let's apply a conversion rate to that and then an average order size to say, okay, we think we can do X amount in sales. Okay, so now we need to make the decision, is this something we can do internally based on that volume, or do we need to look to a provider? And again, everything that Chris hit upon, local currency, can we do it? No. Can we calculate the duty and taxes? No. Can we do the process payment? Everything that he was discussing, we faced that firsthand and came to the conclusion that, you're pulling from 4 to 5 other departments within your organization to do this if you want to do it yourself. And people like 51 Commerce and Global ShopX kind of offer that one-stop shop and handle all that for you.
Great. So now that we've kind of talked about, okay, there's a big opportunity, but there are a lot of challenges. Let's talk a little bit. So say you decide to go international, what kind of preparation do you need to do, and what are the best practices? So this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. So Ramon, do you want to talk a little bit about preparation?
Yeah, one of the things that are very, very important is to focus on the largest market at the beginning. If you want to start internationally, probably you can start with just one country. And if you want to move to 100 or 200 countries, focus on these simple things and focus on the relationship between the shipping cost, international shipping cost, and the value of your product. Okay, so if you are trying to sell something $100 in Russia or in South Africa or Australia, and you are paying more than $60 for just international shipping, nobody will buy it, or you will have just a few sales. You have to be very, very competitive in terms of shipping rates, no more than 30–35% of the value of the product. And you really need to take advantage of taxes and duties ranges by product and by country. So think about, let's say, an example in Russia that under 10,000 Russian rubles, which is around $320, you don't pay taxes and duties. So if you have the hot products over 350, try to reduce those prices in those hot markets that are growing very fast, and you can be very competitive. The same as in Singapore, under 400 Singapore dollars, you don't have to pay tax and duty. That's around, again, $350. Under 1,000 Australian dollars, you don't pay taxes and duties either. So think about those opportunities and think about how to take advantage of that range. It's very, very important to have a full landed cost in order to make sure that there is no surprises. Nobody wants surprises when you are in the international market. And finally, it's important to keep in mind if you have the right information in your databases, the weight, the dimensions, if you can find out where the country of origins in order to take advantage of free trade agreements, if you know the origin of the country, harmonized codes, where are the markets that are really important and where are not so important.
Those are great points. So it sounds like you really need to know about specific countries and what the rules are in each country. Yeah, that's great.
Exactly.
And then just in terms of what to expect.
Yeah, if you are starting shipping internationally, you have no idea where do you have to start. Just start with your current traffic, even that you don't have you are not selling internationally. If you go to complete.com or even Alexa, you will see your U.S. traffic. You can expect 5 to 10% that is international traffic. And from that, if you look at that table, we put two examples. One company with more than 7 million unique visitors per year, and the other one is 2.5 million unique visitors. So what can you expect if you go internationally? So are you going to increase in what percent your revenues? Based on our information, our current information, there is a 30% of conversion rate, and you can expect around the $1.2 million increase your sales if you are if you have around 7 million unique visitors today, and 500,000 in terms of a small company. So in terms of your total current revenues, you can start probably with 1% of the total revenues, but in the second year you can expect 5% of the total revenues just to be internationally, and you can reach 10% if you start doing something locally in the major markets such as in the UK, Canada, Australia, and South America, and Brazil.
Great. Thanks. So now we're going to talk about best practice. We're going to jump right in and keep moving on this, but Chris is going to walk through best practices.
Yeah, I'm going to focus on kind of customer experience best practices. When we started our business and we were sizing our own opportunity as a global e-commerce provider, we just started out trying to figure out how many of the top 500 retailers ship internationally, and it was amazingly difficult to figure that out. Because as Andrew suggested, sometimes the only way for an international customer to know was to go and start a cart and see if Brazil was an option as a country or as a ship to, or see if the FAQs contained international shipping rates. So kind of one of our best practices is letting customers know immediately that you're open for business. And in this example, Crate & Barrel, they use technology of ours to display a welcome mat, which is kind of this JavaScript-enabled kind of light box that hovers over the page they requested. And it's served by 51 and is in Portuguese. It's triggered by a Brazilian IP address being geolocated. And it has messaging that we know addresses concerns that Brazilian consumers have in Portuguese. So even though the site and its content is in English, it's a really great way to welcome somebody, acknowledge that you're open for business, instill confidence upstream, and let them know that they can transact with you with confidence. The second tip is to suppress confusing or site content that's unavailable. If you have functionality or promotions or site features that international customers can't or won't use, then that's noise if you let them see it and attempt to interact with it. So in this example, the Brazilian consumer on Crate & Barrel, once they disposition that light box, they see a 1-800 number that they can't use. So instead, dynamically, Crate & Barrel swaps that phone number out based on a Brazilian session context and presents a number that they can use. Also, on the next a bit down, there's real estate that highlights features like an online registry and an online wish list that for whatever reason can't be used by international customers. So dynamically, again, a session-driven logic, those functionality disappear. And thirdly, you'll notice that Crate & Barrel is promoting things that don't ship well on airplanes, couches and chairs. So instead, if it's an international customer, they dynamically swap the content to promote things that do ship well on planes and across oceans, and also use this as a messaging opportunity to introduce the Crate & Barrel brand and the shopping experience to customers. The third is showing prices the way consumers are used to seeing them. So Canadians and Australians have the same dollar symbol that Americans do, and I can tell you that if you leave that symbol and assume that Canadians and Australians will know that it's their currency, they won't in most cases. So we help our customers not only convert prices on the fly to the appropriate currency, but also use currency symbols that make it really evident that the consumer viewing this currency, it's for them. It's an experience targeted for them. 4 is less is more. We get a lot of customers who ask us about translation and the importance of translating content, and it certainly is important. But when we look at what Zara did, they have an experience that's largely visual and clean and with less content. And that makes it scales well across countries because visual shopping is easier across countries when they don't necessarily have English as a mother tongue. And in this case, there's very little content to translate, so it's cost effective. I mean, a great example is one of the languages they support is Basque, which I think there's like 600,000 people that speak Basque in this region spanning kind of Spain and France. And it's amazing that the ROI was there for them to translate into Basque as an example of less is more. Flat rate shipping. So consumers all around the world value shipping as little as we do as a service. And we hear all the time, like, as Raimundo was saying, consumers just don't want to pay more than $20 to ship anything anywhere on the planet. So instead of trying to convince consumers that that's actually what it costs, we work with a lot of our customers to dynamically adjust prices on a per country basis to take advantage of elasticity in their pricing and use extra margin to fund flat rate shipping campaigns that convert and they're in line with what people in different countries would expect to pay for a local retailer. So unlocking and promoting free shipping and using kind of extra margin dollars to fund free shipping campaigns for different countries is a really great way to acquire customers. And 6 is be opportunistic, refocus markets. So we support 106 countries, and it makes sense to turn the lights on in as many countries as you can, but not necessarily worry about how do I acquire customers in all of those 100 countries right out of the gate. You have to be opportunistic, refocus markets. And here's an example, an illustration of what a $100 US cart converted to in different currencies over the last 5 years. So you can see there's lots of ups and downs. And as I mentioned before, when a currency is strong relative to the US dollar, it's well discussed, it's well known by consumers. And we tell a lot of our customers that this is the year to focus on Canada, Australia, Singapore, and Brazil. And next year, there may be 4 different countries in that list. So you can focus kind of paid search campaigns and email campaigns and customer acquisition campaigns and focus markets, and then be prepared to be opportunistic in future years based on kind of macro and microeconomic conditions.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. And then Ramon is going to talk more on the fulfillment side, some of the best practices you should look for.
Yeah, well, again, the low shipping rates is very, very important. One of the key things to keep in mind. And taxes and duties. It's important to provide this full landed cost, but keep in mind that there's a lot of international customers that they know very well how to buy in the US, and they prefer to pay tax and duties upon delivery in local currency, so they avoid any exchange rate fee that either the credit cards or brokers charge you. So it's important to provide this full landed cost in order to better understand what is the final price that you can expect to have the item in Germany. But in some cases, they prefer to say, okay, I will pay you the shipping and the product, but the tax and duties I pay upon delivery. And the local customer support is very important to keep local phone numbers in Sao Paulo, in Australia, in different with local customer support. Conversion and shopping cart abandon rate. So everybody has some numbers in their own shopping carts, but it's important to determine what are the problems in each of these major markets. In Australia, is it in Australia the major rates of abandon, and what are the main products that I have problems? So in order to focus on those particular problems and not just in the average. And the same with the cancellations. So we have determined that most of the cancellations are because of back orders, and sometimes we are happy to have an abandon rate of 70%, 80%, but it's very easy to increase, to reduce the abandon rate just by looking at some particular items and the payment problems that sometimes not just because of fraud, it's because they need some other options, MoneyGram, Western Union, PayPal, either even a wire transfer, which is very, very common, that prefer to send you directly to a US bank. And international returns, sometimes there's a lot of merchants say, you know what, I don't want to go international because it's so complicated, how can I do with the international returns? It's a pain in the neck. And to be realistic, it's less than 1%, so it's not a big problem. So it's not so common, and it's very easy to fix that type of problems. And the international local marketing, again, it's very important to see where you put your money. You can spend a lot of money worldwide, and returns can be very, very bad if you really don't partner with local marketing companies in some specific markets.
That's great. Thank you. So we're going to keep flying here. We've got about 5 minutes. So just in terms of options, obviously there's some options presented, and Chris is going to talk about how you evaluate these options.
Sure. So, shipping directly is an option and just treating it like a logistics project, and there's a bunch of carriers that can move parcels from the United States out. Some of the challenges inherent around that, revolve around COD fees and trying to push the burdens of international trade to your consumers. That makes customer retention very difficult, and you're basically putting a pretty high bar. Somebody has to really want your product in order to buy it. If you use just to take a carrier or logistics-based approach to international trade. Doing it yourself is also daunting for all the reasons I described earlier. And it's also, there's a significant opportunity cost in trying to do it yourself, because if you think about all the key markets that you want to be in, and you try to, I'd like to set up a specific country site for each of those markets, I mean, realistically, you're only going to be able to get like to 1 or 2 a year, and how many years is it going to take before you're in all the markets you want to be in? What's the cost of not having the lights on earlier? So, obviously, I advocate, partnering with there's lots of providers who can facilitate cross-border trade. I mean, Raimundo and I represent 2 of the companies that can help do this. There's a bunch of companies who are spending 100% of their time thinking about cross-border trade, and no matter how big your international business gets, will always only be some percentage of your entire business. So partnering with somebody who's always thinking about international trade and always innovating can help you kind of get a good head start with a low capital investment.
That's great. So we've got 2 great partners here. I know, Raimundo, you're on Magento Connect.
Yeah, we have an extension with Magento, which is very simple to download. We provide the IP location, the multi-currency. We're displaying multi-currency, but sometimes customers prefer to pay in US dollars, or sometimes they prefer to local currency. It's up to them. We provide the whole logistics management solution, the fraud screening, and customer support, which is very important.
That's
so
great.
It's very easy, it's for free, and so you can try, and you can go internationally very fast.
That's great. And then you have 51 as well.
51 is, again, a platform that we work with retailers of all sizes, including Magento customers like Oneida. We help our customers IP geolocate international customers, automatically recognize them, present prices in their currency site-wide, additionally ratchet prices up for extra margin dollars to use to offset some shipping component or to pocket those dollars, depending on kind of the competitive landscape for your product set. We manage export-import logistics from a facility in the United States, manage all fraud and payment, and effectively we help make any US website appear to be international without you having any new website at all, and make all international customers appear to live in a warehouse in Columbus, Ohio to your fulfillment operation.
That's great. Well, let's jump to results now. So we're going to go right to Oneida and see what results that they've had from going international.
Yeah. So since implementing 51 Commerce, what we've seen is a 26% conversion rate from cart to checkout. An interesting note about that is prior to this 26%, we were not offering flat rate shipping, and we were seeing conversion rates hover around 20–21%. The second we implemented the flat rate shipping to the rest of the world, Great Britain and Canada, we saw our conversion rate immediately jump up. So, 2 things that both Raimundo and Chris talked about is flat rate shipping is really important to the international customer. Profitable. Prior to using 51 Commerce, we were using a service provider that only shipped to Canada. And based on the various costs associated with that provider, we weren't seeing a lot of bottom line revenue with that provider. Since we made the switch to 51, we saw a huge increase as far as our bottom line and our top line. So using that other provider, it was about 2% of our total online business. Since we've gone to 51 and now shipped to 91 countries, we've seen that increase to 3%. Now 1% might not seem like a lot, but from a top line and bottom line, it does add up. That 1% more than pays for the service.
And you can see the main countries, Canada, Australia, UK, and I think that's consistent, Chris, across.
Yeah, the order of those countries is consistent across our community, but the lead that Canada has over Australia is precarious. You know, Canada is still our biggest market, again, the most familiar with US brands, but Australia is an enormous market for us, and we've been doing a lot of interesting things in Australia. United Kingdom is the third biggest market, probably not a surprise. Those are all English-speaking markets, and they all are the most familiar and can interact with your content the most. But we're seeing a lot of interesting stuff happening in Japan, Hong Kong, and Brazil, and Singapore. And I think a lot, you think about Singapore and Hong Kong, as Ramondo was mentioning, there's a lot of relief offered on duties and taxes for imports under a certain threshold. Both are kind of duty-free ports. So, you know, we see, and Russia is also a market that's really on the rise.
That's great. So just in terms of next steps, you know, this is just summary, and then we're going to go right to questions. So Andrew, in terms of next steps, what would you recommend someone if they want to get started internationally?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is you need to analyze your opportunity. Again, really leverage your analytics and really start taking a look at those international customers a lot closer. You know, see how they're finding you, see how they're interacting on your website, see what they're doing on your website. And then based off that, you know, I think you need to make that determination whether you partner with somebody or you do it yourself. Launch in stages. Just like Chris was saying, we didn't go out and try to start capturing customers from, you know, 91 countries right off the bat. We really focused in on those countries where we saw the traffic coming from, time spent on site, you know, very similar to your other online, the way you look at other online marketing initiatives, that's how we were looking at the international customers. And again, dedicate resources, really have somebody who's going to own this business. You get out what you put in, and again, it's just like your other marketing initiatives, whether, you know, it's PPC or email for as much time and data mining you do in those. You really need to dedicate those resources for your international business also.
Great.